Welcome back to Fudge Muppet. My name is Scott, and today I'm so hyped to be bringing you this Starfield Build starter guide. We have spent heaps of time with the game, and because of that, we have been able to explore tons of what this game has to offer, and by God, there is so much role-playing greatness in here. Bethesda has by far exceeded expectations. As you may know, we love our role-playing builds and have made hundreds for Skyrim and Fallout, and we absolutely plan on crafting some awesome build experiences for you. Our first builds will be out very soon. However, in the meantime, this is a Starfield Build starter guide where I will explain all the systems involved in character creation and leveling and offer you some insight so that you can get an idea of what you want to do with your character before you play. Let's get straight into it. First off, Starfield has tons of role-playing involved in the quests and dialogue, and so this is something to carefully consider in character creation. To begin with, you'll be customizing your face and body, making your carefully curated character aesthetic. However, do not stress too much, because for a simple 500 credits, you can go to a shop called Enhance, found in most main cities and other locations, and you can change your appearance fully at any time. The next stage is arguably the most important, picking your background. These backgrounds will give you a suite of 3 starting skills, but again, don't stress too much about those. In the grand scheme of things, 3 extra skill points is a nice start, but personally, I wouldn't hinge my decision based on the starting skills entirely. Far more important is the actual background, that being bounty hunter, chef, gangster, space scoundrel, professor, cyber runner, and so on. Make sure you pick one that you like for character reasons. For example, if you aren't interested in gastronomy, the food crafting skills, but still think chef is a really fun background for role-playing reasons, then absolutely still go for it. There are many unique dialogue opportunities that will appear throughout the game because of your background choice, and so please do pick one that reflects the nature of the character you want to play rather than just the starting skills it has. The final stage of character creation is selecting from a list of traits. You don't have to have any traits, but honestly, I feel like that's just a disadvantage, and it deprives you of a whole host of awesome role-playing opportunities as well as some neat statistical bonuses. Let's first talk about some of the mutually exclusive options. So there are 2 sets of 3 which fit into a cultural background and a religious background. For cultural, there is Freestar Collective Settler, United Colonies Native, and Neon Street Rat. These 3 backgrounds establish that you are familiar with the respective cultures, giving you additional dialogue options, potentially better rewards for missions in the respective places, and crime bounties from the other factions will be increased. Especially first time around, I would recommend picking one of these, and I would even suggest also picking a religious choice to go along with it, choosing from either Raised Enlightened, which is really not a religion but rather organized atheism with humanitarian pursuits. Raised Universal, the Sanctum Universum is kind of like a syncretic monotheistic religion that believes that God exists somewhere in the universe and is guiding humanity to meet him. And finally, there's the most exotic of the 3, Serpent's Embrace, which means you grew up worshipping the Great Serpent, a cosmic entity that will encircle the universe and devour all the non-believers. These religious choices confer some benefits, with Raised Enlightened and Raised Universal offering a chest of special items in each respective organization's house in New Atlantis, but the Great Serpent, the faith of the mysterious House Varun, offers a different ability, one that increases your health and oxygen for a time after grav jumping, but these stats are lowered if you have not jumped in quite some time. I will say that you grav jump a lot, so I ended up having this effect active pretty much always. It is my strong recommendation to pick one of each for your first playthrough, and then a bonus 3rd trait. Dialogue options for other traits are also there, but less common in my experience. However, there are some role-playing opportunities here with tangible elements, such as Hero Worshipped, giving you an adoring fan companion, Kid Stuff, which gives you a set of parents that are alive and well living in New Atlantis, and you can visit them. If parents are important to your particular character backstory, then perhaps you want this choice, though you do have to send 2% of your credits home automatically every week. Dream Home gives you a luxury estate dream home on a planet, but you also get a fat mortgage that you have to pay off. I think this will be great for those luxury-seeking, money-making characters, or perhaps a rich cyber runner. There is Extrovert and Introvert, of which you can only pick one. Introvert decreases oxygen consumption when you are adventuring alone, and it increases when with companions. And Extrovert does the opposite, increasing it when alone and decreasing it when with companions. In case it wasn't clear, reduced oxygen consumption is good. It's essentially your stamina bar, used for sprinting, jumping, jumping and things of that nature. Ultimately, these are valuable traits, however, I would probably recommend for a first playthrough avoiding introvert, as the companions are great to do quests with and they have heaps of dialogue and insights during the quest lines, and I think it would be a shame to be punished for experiencing that side of the game, at least for the first time around. But that doesn't mean you have to pick extrovert either. There are some other cool options. For example, there is terra firma, which increases your health and oxygen while on a planet, but decreases it in space, and spaced does the opposite. You can only pick one of these, but in my experience and current estimation, I would say that terra firma proves to be the better choice of the two, as I found being on planets much more common than being on space stations or boarding ships, though it might depend. The final group of traits are more singular options with mainly statistical benefits, such as alien DNA, which gives you increased health and oxygen, but healing items and food aren't as effective. I've personally used this one for my xenobiologist background character, however I didn't really encounter any dialogue options for it, only that I could remove it at a doctor, but more on that in a bit. There is empath, which provides a temporary increase in combat effectiveness after your companion likes or loves something that you did. However, if they dislike it, there is a decrease in combat effectiveness. I only have a little bit of experience with this trait, and so far the bonus effect I get is increased critical hit chance and increased success chance for speech challenges. Another one that I have no experience with currently is Taskmaster, which says occasionally if you have crew trained in a certain ship system, that ship will automatically repair itself to full health whenever it is damaged below 50%. However, crew costs twice as much to hire. But having lots of experience with crew and space combat, I do not think this is a valuable pick at face value. I can't say for certain. However, I do find that when your ship parts are damaged below 50%, you're usually on the way to a quick death, or something else has gone really wrong. And hiring crew is expensive already, typically in the 10 to 15k range, unless you haggle it down with Persuade, but doubling that is pretty intense, for a benefit that I don't think will be happening as often as you may like. Plus, you also need the crew member with the respective skills. But the final trait to discuss is wanted, which means you have a price on your head. Someone put a bounty out and occasionally armed mercenaries will come and try and take that bounty. I personally started with this, and to clarify, it's not a crime bounty, but rather someone specifically has put a bounty on you. Plenty of opportunity for role-playing here, and I'll say that this actually came up in dialogue quite a bit. In gameplay terms, when your health is low, you do extra damage, but from a role-playing perspective, you could play a Han Solo type space smuggler who has crossed the wrong crime boss and so now has bounty hunters after him, or perhaps you're a cyber runner who hacked the accounts of the wrong megacorp executive. Many cool opportunities for role-playing with this one. This is one of the best facets of Starfield, the absolute emphasis on role-playing and providing all the tools and systems that you can work into a character backstory and have that actually recognized in the world itself. It is really awesome. I also want to mention that it's possible to remove some traits. For example, I could remove my alien DNA trait at a doctor, or I could remove introvert when I spoke to a guy at the House of the Enlightened, with dialogue saying how I wanted to open up more and meet more people. It's all very nicely integrated into the conversation, so it doesn't feel like a simple, suddenly I don't have this trait situation by going to a menu. It feels like a result of choices that I made. So far, we haven't seen an option to add traits. But moving on, it's time to break down the leveling and skill systems. Starfield has an interesting hybrid of Fallout's XP perk-based system and Skyrim's level by doing system, and I have to say, I really like it. For those familiar with previous BGS games, skill points in Starfield are essentially perk points, and you gain these by leveling up with experience from kills, quests, and so on. Now, the first rank of any skill can be achieved by putting in a skill point, but in order to advance that skill to the next rank, you need to complete a challenge for that skill before you can spend another skill point there. So for example, something as simple as for pistols, killing X amount of enemies with pistols, or with piloting, destroy X amount of ships. Things like that. So in order to progress in a skill, you have to prove that you are competent enough to warrant it. So this system allows for the role-playing benefits of having to actually engage in the skills you want to increase, but without having to endlessly grind to up a skill. It also stops more exploits and prevents the need for leveling skills unrelated to your build. For example, in Skyrim, sometimes it felt as if you had to increase skills you don't use when at high levels, just so you could get more perks. In my opinion, Starfield's system is the best of both worlds, which I I'm really happy about, because when I first saw this system, I was a little bit worried, but having actually played it, I really enjoy it. So at the end of the day, it is really simple. Get the first rank of a skill, complete the challenge, put a skill point in it again to rank it up. Now, you may notice that the skill system is on this tiered list of several skills in rows of 4 for each group. How it works is that at first, the later tiers of skills in each tree are locked until there is a prerequisite total skill investment met. To reach the second tier, you require 4 points invested in the tree. For the third tier, you require 8, and for the fourth tier, you require 12 skill points invested into the tree. To clarify, because I'm sure you are wondering, these skill points in order to meet the tier requirements can be placed anywhere. So for example, it is entirely possible to, in the social tree, put 4 points into persuasion, commerce, scavenging, and theft, and then have access to the fourth tier and begin placing points in ship command. You only need the required 12 total. It doesn't matter what tier the skill itself is in. This system brings many things for you to consider when building your character. For example, I would say most builds will be taking skills from multiple trees, but also there are trade-offs to consider when selecting skills. You absolutely can go for the style where you only want a single skill in that tier 1, and so you just level that exclusively. However, at the same time, this is potentially a lengthy process because of the challenges, and perhaps this is acceptable depending on your build. And keep in mind, some skills are easier to level, most combat skills for example, but you may also want to spread your points across the lower tiers of the tree so you can get access to the later tier skills sooner. For example, I may want to get to the ship command skill in tier 4 of the social tree. To access this, I will need 12 skill points invested into the tree. I could go into persuasion with 4 points to try and get into the next tier, but chances are I won't finish the required challenges before I level up and gain skill points, which I then want to put into the next tier, but I can't yet. Maybe you just wait it out or focus on other trees. However, you could possibly get to level 5 and easily put a point into persuasion, commerce, scavenging, and say rank 2 of commerce. And so by then you have access to the next tier way quicker. This is just something to consider when leveling your character. You need to consider what skills you value highly. It may very well be worth going with a wider spread of skills so that you can get to the skill in a later tier that you really want much earlier than otherwise would have been possible. Another consideration with this leveling system is a degree of timing, because challenges are not retroactive. I can explain this easy with an example. Say I used pistols to kill enemies throughout the game, but with no skill investment, and then at level 40 I get the pistols skill rank 1. I still must complete the challenge to kill X amount of enemies before I can make it to rank 2 with another skill point. So with this knowledge, it is important to consider that sometimes going broader with your skills allows you to complete more challenges concurrently as you play, rather than specifically focusing on one. Okay, so now you understand the functions behind the system, let's dive into the skill trees and speak a little bit about each of them before I give some guidance. There are 5 trees or skill groups, whatever you want to call them: physical, social, combat, science, and tech. Now, it's worth noting that these categorizations of skills are different than most previous BGS games, as certain skills for a playstyle will be spread throughout several trees. There are very few builds I would think are min-maxing into a single tree. Physical includes things such as boxing, which is unarmed, carry weight, health, fitness, which increases oxygen, kind of like your stamina, sneak-related skills, and several resistances and regen-based skills. So this would be important for unarmed characters, tankier characters, and sneak-based characters. Social includes the classics such as commerce, which is bartering, and persuasion, but also things such as scavenging and theft, and the whole slew of skills like intimidation, manipulation, instigation, and so on, which are various different abilities that are used in both dialogue and, similar to the gameplay how you could in Fallout 4, essentially fulfilling a similar gameplay role as illusion spells in Skyrim, but more in-universe, of course. There are also companion-related skills and both outpost management and ship command, which confer several benefits in regards to crew on your ship or at outposts. Also, there is isolation in here, which is essentially a skill that functions like Fallout's Lone Wanderer perk. Combat covers pretty much everything combat except unarmed, which is in physical. You can spec into skills that cover weapon damage types such as ballistics, lasers, explosives, particle weapons, etc., but Also specific weapons such as pistols, rifles, shotguns, heavy weapons, scoped weapons. Then in later tiers there is more about crit damage, armor penetration, crippling and such. It's worth noting that this is not a game where you are severely gimped if you don't spec heavy into this tree. It is entirely feasible to take none or one. For example, on my builds that prioritize other skills, I will often just take ballistics to improve all-round ballistic damage and give me some options. The next group over is the science skill. This mainly involves a slew of skills related to resource gathering, surveying, crafting and researching, but also some ship bonuses and outpost enhancements. And in the final group we have tech, which is predominantly related to spaceship performance and building, but also boost pack functionality and security, as well as robot building for outposts. So those are the skill groups, but there is a lot more to consider. Like I said before, min-maxing isn't as simple and straightforward as being, say, a mage, assassin or warrior. There is a lot of flexibility in this system. Even consider that someone with 20 skill points invested in a single skill group might be an entirely different build to someone else. Let me give you an example. Someone might go into the science skills and get all ranks of surveying, botanist, zoology, scanning, and astrophysics, which results in a character who excels at exploring planets and recording data, fully surveying entire planets easily, which by the way is a great way to level up, something I'll talk about in an upcoming Explorer's Guide. And by the way, this is so much fun. Exploring is just such a fun part of the game. But at the same time, someone could spec into medicine, research methods, weapon crafting, spacesuit crafting, and chem crafting, which results in an entirely crafting focused character. Two different builds and playstyles with the same skill point number invested into the same tree. The case is the same with others. There is a ridiculous amount of really cool build potential from a statistical and a role-playing perspective, so expect to see our classic Fudge Muppet builds real soon. Be sure to subscribe so you can see them as they drop. But now I think you more or less, given everything that I've told you, understand how the systems work. Now it's time to offer some general advice as well as some broad archetypes for builds. One word of really broad advice, I feel as if everyone will probably want to put at least 1 point in boost packs just so you can use them. There are so many instances where traversal is made 1,000 times easier because of them, and the convenience it affords is just essential for most characters in my opinion. If you don't have a single point in the skill, you can't use them at all. Outside of that, there are some other recommendations such as fitness for convenience, important especially if you are playing a melee character or an explorer character, and it takes a while to complete the challenges for fitness, but outside of these two, really it depends on the rest of the character. Also, feel free to ignore them if you want, but they both bring a ton of convenience. But now for some more specific build archetype recommendations, things like melee, ranged combat, stealth, piloting, social, or outpost building. So for melee, the combat skill dueling is a no-brainer, but outside of that, physical skills are going to be giving some serious return on investment, particularly fitness and wellness, which is essentially stamina and health. Some may consider getting medicine in the tech tree because you will get exposed to more damage as you run around through gunfire, but in my experience, I easily make do with no skill points in medicine, and when you reach the final rank of dueling, you get 10% of your health back on a melee kill, so having a larger health pool with wellness is very worthwhile. On top of that, focusing more so on the resistances and regeneration could be a better play, or perhaps if you're finding that you're sturdy enough, you can invest instead in an accompanying playstyle, like perhaps into social more, things like intimidation for the vibes and a bit of crowd control. Do note that if you're going to go with unarmed, and as a disclaimer, I haven't experimented thoroughly enough with this yet, you will want to forget about the dueling skill and instead focus hard on the physical tree, because it offers several skills related to unarmed effectiveness throughout the tree, specifically boxing in tier 1, martial arts in tier 3, and neuro strikes in tier 4. I think the strategy for unarmed would be trying to max skill investment early into physical and min-max more so. For example, take fitness, boxing, and wellness ASAP, and if you picked a background with a boxing skill, you should be able to be on tier 2 by level 4, then keep prioritizing physical so you can quickly get to tier 3 and begin working on the martial arts skill, followed by neuro strikes. An unarmed build is one of the few examples where I think min-maxing may actually be the best. However, consider that it does not have the 10% health recovery on kills like the 4th rank of dueling does, so maybe you could consider medicine, but you could also get nutrition, which increases the benefits of food, which mostly offers health restoration, but also a variety of other effects depending on the specific food. But the benefit of adding skill points for nutrition instead of medicine is that it would contribute to unlocking tiers 3 and 4 of physical quicker so that you can get to martial arts or neuro strikes faster. I do feel unarmed playstyles require a more dedicated character, whereas melee requires requires far less to be effective in my opinion. Really, the only essentials I would say are fitness, wellness, and dueling, at least for the first 20 levels. But remember, we will be making dedicated role-playing builds and experimenting further with these to make some really awesome playstyles. Final note I can say is that Melee is really fun, and in my opinion, the gameplay showcase did not do it justice. So next up, let's talk about ranged combat. Most of this all exists within the combat skill group, and honestly, it is very straightforward. You pick the weapon damage type like ballistics or lasers, or a weapon type like pistols or rifles, or both, and run with it. My first playthrough was gunslinger with pistols and ballistics investment, and then further into rapid reloading and targeting. Then heading for armor penetration is really good, helping you just flatten enemies. It's a relatively similar process for any ranged combat focused build, with some degrees of nuance with crippling skills and scoped weapon skills, or marksman for extra crit chance. There's a lot of possible combinations here. However, as a flat recommendation, if you are unsure, as you very may well be, of what particular type of weapon appeals to you and which one you want to use, pistol, shotgun, etc., I would just say start investing in ballistics, which is by far the most common damage type. Then you can test out a variety of weapons and then later spec into more specifically rifles, heavy weapons, etc. Something else to consider is that in the tech tree, boost packs are fantastic for a ranged character. They allow you to get good vantage points, and this makes the gameplay far more dynamic. Personally, I like to invest in the tech tree further, even say piloting, or the ballistic weapons for your ship, maybe even security. It'll depend on what you want exactly for the rest of your build, but this investment is mainly for the boost pack assault skill in tier 4, which is sick. Now, the first rank causes area flame damage when you jetpack near enemies, second rank can cause knockdowns, but the third rank is where it really steps up. At rank 3, when you use the boost pack, you can aim and then hover for the duration of your boost pack fuel, so you can take shots from the sky, and at rank 4 this process slows time by 70%. You can see how cool it is, fulfilling that Jango Fett bounty hunter vibe. As for social, it changes depending on what exactly you want out of it, and perhaps the morality of your character. Persuasion will help you pass speech checks, negotiation for bribes as well, but maybe you'll want to go into intimidation and manipulation or instigation and have more crowd control type abilities, but you can also neglect these and instead just want to get the outpost or ship features of this tree. If you want to be some kind of spaceship admiral type character, then perhaps going for persuasion, commerce, and then into diplomacy, and then leadership, and then ship command, and have a battle station full of worthy crew. However, the social tree is also very important for an operative playstyle or a thief type character. Skills like theft, isolation for those lone wolf benefits, and manipulation all pair very well with a more stealth-oriented playstyle that will be investing into the physical group somewhat. I think the stealth social playstyle is quite complementary. For outpost builders, there is some utility here as well with the outpost management skill on tier 3, but also consider that commerce and perhaps bribery easy fit in and help an industrialist outpost builder, a money-making CEO of a corporate empire. You will find that most builds benefit from taking from multiple skill groups, and that there are many benefits from dipping into several to mix and match unique playstyles. But another example where you can get really far in a single tree is with the piloting focused playstyle. This is pretty much all tech tree, and if you start with a bounty hunter background, it actually has 3 background skills all in the one group, meaning you could get access to tier 2 after a single level. Outside of robotics and the 2 boost pack related skills, pretty much all of the ship skills are in here, ranging from specialties in various weapon types, ballistic, particle, etc., and shield systems and engine speed and repair to starship design, which offers you the ability to purchase unique and experimental ship parts. Be sure to check out our comprehensive starship guide on the channel tomorrow with a spec'd out ship and a whole bunch of these skills. It is probably unnecessary to go hard into science, where you can get the astrodynamics for grav drive distance and anetronic fusion for extra power, so you can distribute it to more systems, having them active at once, but consult our starship guide for more information on that. As for anyone interested in crafting, all these skills exist in the science tree except for gastronomy, which is in social, so it's feasible to have a hard investment into one tree as a crafter unless you want to get into cooking, which is easily accessed since gastronomy is a tier 1 social skill. Honestly, I don't think most characters will be solely crafting characters, but rather dipping into science to get spacesuit design, or weapon engineering on tier 2, or chemistry in tier 3. Picking maybe 1 or 2 rather than every crafting skill. Science is really really important for an explorer-based character, and lots of the skills are related to that. There will be an explorer guide on the channel really soon. The exploration is crazy rewarding in terms of experience if you are optimized for it, and in general, just all of the cool stuff to see. I will expand more in that video, but take surveying and zoology at minimum and thank me later. So there are some loose recommendations, a little bit of guidance for your first playthrough. Soon there will be a fully dedicated, expansive role-playing builds that will be hitting the channel regularly, so get pumped up. Starfield is such an awesome game, more than I could have wished for, and we are so keen to have a fresh game with even better role-playing systems than other BGS games, so we can truly make some awesome builds for you guys. Give the video a like and get excited for this new era of sensational role-playing. That is all from me for now. My name is Scott from Fudge Muppet, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again real soon.